The sky was not supposed to look like that. Elena Marlowe stood at the glass wall of the Atlantic Naval Command Tower, staring upward as the atmosphere turned red. Hundreds of silhouettes blotted out the stars, vast triangular warships descending in formation, each the size of a city block. Their engines burned blue fire, casting long shadows across the ocean. The air smelled of ozone and panic. "God help us," whispered Lieutenant Reeves beside her. His hands shook against the console. That's not a fleet. That's an execution." The first beam hit New York. It was not fire in the traditional sense, not even an explosion, just a line of plasma so pure it carved a swath of the city into molten glass. The shockwave reached their station minutes later, rattling windows and stirring a low moan from the ocean. Alarms shrieked through the tower. "Admiral request on line 3, Reeves shouted, but the comms dissolved into static. Elena adjusted her headset, voice steady despite the dread climbing her spine. "This is Captain Elena Marlowe, Atlantic Command. I need a status report on the Valiant." Only silence came back. Then, faintly, screams. Elena's chest tightened. Her brother, Marcus, was commanding officer aboard the Valiant, Earth's pride of the naval fleet. The ship had been stationed in low orbit as humanity's shield. Now, through the haze of the descending invaders, Elena could make out the distinct outline of the Valiant. She forced herself to believe he was still alive, still holding the line. "Multiple launches detected!" Reeves cried. "The Valiant's trying to return fire!" Blue streaks of railgun rounds surged upward. For a brief moment, Elena's heart lifted. They trained for this, humanity had defenses. But then the Dominion ship above rotated with mechanical elegance, its underbelly blooming with light. "No, no, no," Elena whispered. The plasma beams sliced the Valiant in two. One half spun into the atmosphere, a burning coffin. The other half disintegrated before reaching the ocean. Marcus's voice, his laughter, his stubborn arguments, they vanished with it. Something inside Elena snapped. The broadcast came next, overriding every frequency on Earth. A guttural, alien voice boomed from radios, televisions, even wrist comms. The words translated in cold, metallic English. "Humans! This world is now subject to the Threx Dominion. Kneel, and you may live as servants. Resist, and you will be purged." Every syllable dripped with contempt, as though the Dominion saw them not as enemies but as insects. Reeves staggered back. "Captain, what do we—" "We don't kneel," Elena cut in, her voice sharp as steel. She tore the headset off and slammed it on the console. "Not today, not ever." The tower shook violently as another orbital strike landed somewhere inland. Dust rained from the ceiling. Elena knew the base wouldn't survive another direct hit. She turned to Reeves, locking eyes with him. "Get whoever you can out of here. Head underground, keep moving. Tell them the fight isn't over. And you? I'll buy you time." Reeves hesitated, but the conviction in her gaze left no room for argument. He saluted once, eyes wet, then sprinted for the evacuation lifts. The command floor emptied quickly. Screens flickered with collapsing defense grids, cities going dark one after another. Washington, offline. Tokyo, offline. Mars relay silent. Humanity's great web of colonies and stations was unraveling in real time. Elena remained at the glass, jaw clenched. She wasn't a woman prone to superstition, but in that moment she could almost feel Marcus's hand on her shoulder, urging her to stand. The Dominion warships loomed closer, casting shadows over the ocean like vultures circling a carcass. They expected fear, submission, broken spirits. Elena felt rage instead. She tore her officer's insignia from her shoulder and let it fall to the floor. The uniform meant nothing now, not when Earth's command chain lay in ruins. What mattered was survival. What mattered was resistance. Her comm buzzed faintly, local frequency. A scratchy voice broke through. "This is Lieutenant Caro, Resistance Cell Bravo 7. We've got survivors regrouping under the city tunnels. Anyone receiving, respond." Elena pressed her wrist calm. "This is Captain Marlowe. I'm coming to you. Hold fast. Captain? Thought you Navy brass were all gone. Not yet, she said. The lift doors opened behind her, the last chance before the tower collapsed. She stepped inside, the floor groaning under another impact. As the doors closed, she caught one final glimpse of the burning horizon. We don't kneel. The lift shuddered down into the depths. Minutes later, she emerged into the chaos of the underground. Survivors huddled in shadows, faces streaked with soot and tears. Children clung to mothers, silent in shock. Soldiers patched wounds with trembling hands. Caro, a rugged lieutenant with half his uniform torn, pushed through the crowd when he spotted her. Captain Marlowe? You're alive. Alive and not planning to stay quiet. Caro gave a grim smile. You've got guts. But look around, half of us don't even have rifles. The Dominion's everywhere. What chance do we have? Elena met his doubt with steady fire in her eyes. They think we'll kneel. That's their mistake. We don't need numbers. We need to be smarter, faster, unpredictable. Humanity doesn't surrender. We fight. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Exhausted soldiers, shaken civilians, people who had thought the war was already lost. For the first time since the invasion began, there was a spark. A boy, no older than 10, raised his head. Ma'am, are we really going to fight them? Elena crouched so her gaze met his. His face was streaked with ash, but his eyes were wide and searching. Yes, she said, her voice soft but unbreakable. We'll fight them until they understand what it means to stand against humans. The boy nodded slowly, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Caro folded his arms, considering her words. Finally, he gave a single nod. Then I'm with you. Others began to echo him, first a few, then dozens, until the tunnel filled with the low rumble of voices swearing to stand. Above, the world burned. The Dominion was certain victory was theirs. But in the tunnels beneath the ruined earth, Captain Elena Marlowe had lit the first spark of resistance. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. The tunnels smelled of damp stone, oil, and fear. Days had passed since the Dominion struck, but for the survivors crammed into the underground passages, time felt frozen. The surface world, the cities, the skies, the oceans, was no longer theirs. Above, alien patrols scoured ruins with machines that glowed like predators' eyes in the dark. Below, whispers carried further than courage. Elena Marlowe walked the narrow corridor, her boots echoing softly. Every face she passed bore the same mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. Mothers clutching infants, soldiers with blood-stained bandages, old men staring at nothing. It was the look of a people not yet convinced tomorrow was possible. Lieutenant Caro caught up to her. His uniform was dirted with soot, his jaw dark with stubble. Captain, the scouts returned. Dominion patrols are sweeping the upper streets, armed walkers with drone escorts. They're rounding up anyone left behind. Elena's mouth hardened. For what? Execution? Caro shook his head grimly. Enslavement. The Dominion loads them onto transports, herds them like cattle. They call it integration. The word scraped at her nerves. Integration meant obedience, silence, the extinguishing of humanity's fire. Marcus's face flashed in her mind, the last look she imagined before the Valiant disintegrated. If her brother had taught her anything, it was that surrender was worse than death. She stopped at a crude command post carved into the tunnels. Maps littered the table, hand-sketched from memory. Power flickered from salvaged batteries. A dozen resistance fighters looked up as she entered. Status, Elena said, taking her place at the center. A young corporal leaned over the map. We've identified Dominion supply convoys moving through Midtown. Ground vehicles escorted by drones. They're using human roads. Caro scoffed. Arrogant bastards think they own the place already. Elena's gaze swept the room. If they use our roads, we'll make them regret it. Ambush the convoy. Take weapons, supplies, whatever we can carry. We need a win. The fighters exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen the Dominion's power. The word ambush carried weight heavier than rifles. One soldier finally muttered, "Captain, we're barely armed. What chance do we stand against their tech?" Elena leaned forward, voice low but sharp. "They expect us to fight their way. We won't. We'll strike where they don't look, vanish before they recover. They've never fought humans who won't kneel. That's our advantage." The silence that followed wasn't disbelief this time. It was the first stirrings of resolve. That night, the resistance moved through abandoned subways toward the surface. Elena led from the front, rifle slung across her chest, senses sharp. Every creak of the tunnel echoed like thunder. When they emerged into the ruins, the night air was thick with smoke. Once bustling skyscrapers now stood hollow, windows shattered, streets lined with charred husks of cars. In the distance, the glow of alien engines painted the skyline. Caro crouched beside her, scanning the street. "Convoy should pass here. We've got high ground on that overpass." The fighters fanned out, nerves taut as wires. Elena settled behind the rusted shell of a transport truck, her eyes fixed on the empty road. For a long, breathless moment, there was nothing. Then came the hum. Alien vehicles rolled into view, sleek black transports hovering just above the asphalt, flanked by spider-like walkers with glowing cores. Drones circled overhead, red optics scanning the ruins. The convoy moved with mechanical precision, certain of its dominance. Elena raised her hand. "Wait!" The resistance crouched low, hidden among debris. The Dominion didn't slow, their arrogance their shield. When the lead vehicle passed beneath the overpass, Elena dropped her hand. "Now!" A volley of improvised explosives rained from above, shattering against the transport's hull. Fire and smoke erupted, throwing the convoy into chaos. Fighters leapt from cover, rifles spitting defiance. The street became a war zone. One of the alien walkers turned, plasma cannon charging, but Caro was faster, firing a rocket that detonated against its core. The machine toppled with a shriek of tearing metal. Elena sprinted forward, her rifle kicking against her shoulder. She ducked beneath the drone's beam, rolled, and fired upward. Its red eye went dark as it spiraled into the pavement. She rose, breathing hard, adrenaline burning away the grief and fear. "Push them back!" she shouted. Humans fought with desperation, with fury, with the knowledge they had nothing left to lose. The Dominion, unprepared for such resistance, faltered. Within minutes, half the convoy was destroyed, the rest retreating in disarray. When the smoke cleared, the street was littered with wreckage. Alien tech glowed faintly, humming as though alive. The fighters gathered, disbelief written across their faces. Caro whistled low. "We did it! We actually did it!" Elena pulled her helmet free, hair damp with sweat. "This is just the start." They scavenged what they could: plasma rifles, energy cells, alien rations. Every scrap mattered. As dawn broke over the ruins, survivors crept from hiding places. Civilians who had been too afraid to move now stared at the wreckage with wide eyes. For the first time, they saw that the Dominion was not invincible. A woman stepped forward, clutching her daughter's hand. Was this your doing?" Elena met her gaze, firm and unflinching. "It was humanity's doing. And we're not done." The crowd stirred with murmurs, hope threading through despair like light-piercing smoke. Later, back in the tunnels, the fighters unloaded their prizes. Spirits were higher than they had been since the invasion began. Laughter returned, cautious but real. Caro approached Elena, handing her one of the alien rifles. Its surface shimmered faintly, the weapon humming with alien energy. "Feels wrong in my hands," he admitted. "But if it kills them..." "It will," Elena said, weighing the weapon. She set it on the table, her eyes sweeping across the fighters. "The Dominion thinks they've broken us. Let them keep thinking it. We'll use their weapons, their arrogance, and turn it against them." Caro leaned closer. "Captain, word's spreading. Other cells are asking for leadership. They want you at the front." Elena exhaled slowly. She had never asked for command beyond her naval rank. But in the absence of government, admirals, and armies, someone had to carry the weight. "Then we lead," she said simply. That night, when the fighters settled into restless sleep, Elena lingered alone by the dim glow of a lantern. She replayed the battle in her mind, the fire, the screams, the victories bought with blood. Marcus's face haunted her still, but it no longer paralyzed her. His death was a wound, yes, but also a vow. The Dominion had come expecting obedience. Instead, they had awakened something else. Humanity's fight had begun, and Elena would see it through, no matter the cost. Above, alien ships prowled Earth's skies. But beneath, in the shattered veins of the world, resistance was taking root. The tunnels no longer felt like tombs. They hummed with activity, fighters cleaning weapons, engineers tinkering with scavenged alien tech, civilians lending hands where they could. The victory against the convoy had changed something subtle but powerful. Fear still lingered, but beneath it burned a quiet fire, belief. Elena stood at the makeshift command post, staring at the alien rifle on the table. Its surface pulsed faintly as if it were alive, veins of light coursing along the stock. Human scientists would have needed years to understand it. Now they had hours. Still creeps me out, Caro muttered as he approached, arms folded. Like it's watching us. Elena tapped the side of the rifle. Creepy or not, it's our best chance. If we can learn how it works, we level the field. Caro shook his head. We've got mechanics, not physicists. We're out of our depth. We don't need to master it, Elena said firmly. We just need to bend it enough to bite them back. Hours later, she found herself crouched beside Jonas, a wiry engineer with grease-stained fingers. The alien rifle lay open on the workbench, glowing faintly. Jonas's brow glistened with sweat as he prodded its core with improvised tools. It's some kind of energy feedback loop, Jonas muttered. Doesn't fire bullets, doesn't even fire plasma. It folds power into something I don't have words for. Elena studied the humming chamber. Can you replicate it? Jonas laughed without humor. Replicate? No. But maybe I can make it fire without blowing our arms off. Elena's lips tightened, but she nodded. Do it. Every rifle we get working is one less alien standing. The next mission came sooner than expected. Scouts reported a Dominion outpost rising on the outskirts of the city, metallic towers fused into human concrete, drones weaving defenses. It wasn't just a base, it was a foothold. If the Dominion finished it, the Resistance's tunnels would be cut off. Elena gathered the fighters, 30 in total, their faces lit by lantern glow. They think they can build on our soil without consequence, she said, voice carrying through the chamber. They think we'll crawl deeper underground and wait for chains. Tonight, we show them this city isn't theirs. Murmurs swelled, rifles lifted. The memory of the convoy fueled their courage. Caro leaned close as the group dispersed to gear up. You're making promises we might not keep. Elena met his gaze. We can't afford silence. Every strike is proof we're still alive. Night cloaked the ruins as the Resistance crept toward the outpost. The skeletal remains of skyscrapers loomed like watchful giants, glass crunching under careful boots. Ahead, the alien towers pulsed with green light, humming with energy. Drones patrolled in neat circles, oblivious to the shadows creeping closer. Elena signaled the squad to split, 2 flanks circling wide, one group holding back with rocket launchers scavenged from military caches. She crouched beside Caro, studying the enemy lines. Target the power nodes, she whispered. Cut their defenses before they know what hit them. Caro gave a thin grin. And after? After, she said, chambering around. We burn their outposts to the ground. The ambush began with silence broken by thunder. Rockets streaked from the shadows, slamming into the tower's glowing cores. Explosions lit the night, energy fields collapsing in showers of sparks. Move! Elena shouted, surging forward. The Resistance poured from cover, rifles blazing. Jonas's jury-rigged alien weapon spat a beam of searing light, slicing clean through a drone. Fighters cheered, rallying behind the strange new firepower. The Dominion reeled, caught off guard by the ferocity of the assault. But they adapted quickly. Spider walkers clambered from the compound, legs tearing through rubble, cannons glowing. Elena dropped behind a wall as plasma scorched the pavement beside her. She popped up, squeezed off 2 shots, and watched a drone shatter midair. Around her, humans fought with grit sharpened by desperation. Every shout, every blast, every fall carved the night into chaos. One walker advanced too close. Carol leapt from cover with a rocket on his shoulder. "Eat this!" he roared, firing point blank. The explosion tore the machine apart, showering sparks across the street. "Push!" Elena yelled, her voice ragged but strong. The outpost collapsed under the onslaught. Alien towers toppled, their green light sputtering into black smoke. The last Dominion soldier fell, body crumpling against the rubble. Silence followed, broken only by the ragged breaths of the resistance. They had won. Again. As dawn edged over the ruins, the fighters gathered amid the wreckage. Some were grinning, others too stunned to speak. A few wept openly, not for loss this time, but for something more fragile: hope. Caro dropped heavily onto a broken slab, wiping soot from his brow. "We're making a habit of this." Elena stood at the center, surveying the ruin of the alien outpost. For the first time since the invasion, Earth's soil felt reclaimed. "This is how it starts," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone. "Strike by strike, until they realize humanity isn't prey." Jonas limped over, clutching the modified rifle. "Captain, whatever powers these things, it's dangerous. But it works. We can fight them with their own tools." Elena nodded slowly. "Then we'll take every scrap we find. We'll use their arrogance against them." Back in the tunnels, the news spread faster than fire. Survivors whispered of the outpost's destruction, of alien machines burning under human hands. Word carried down forgotten rail lines, through shattered shelters, across battered comm links. Other resistance cells reached out, voices tinged with awe and determination. Caro found Elena sitting alone, exhaustion etched into her features. He set a hand on the table. "You realize what you've done?" he said softly. "You've turned survivors into soldiers." Elena looked up, eyes rimmed with fatigue but burning steady. "Not soldiers. Fighters. Soldiers wait for orders. Fighters make their own." Caro exhaled, then chuckled dryly. "You always talk like that?" "Only when someone has to," she said. That night, Elena lay awake in the dim lantern light, Marcus's face lingering in her memory. She imagined him watching, smirking in that way he always did when she proved stubborn. The Dominion had come to shatter humanity's will. Instead, they had ignited it. The spark was lit, and she would fan it until it became a blaze the aliens could never extinguish. Above, the ships still prowled the skies. But beneath the ruins, in the tunnels of a broken city, a truth was taking root: humanity would not kneel. Not now. Not ever. The Dominion adjusted quickly. Their arrogance had faltered after the convoy and the outpost fell, but empires did not yield so easily. Within days, drones patrolled in swarms, orbital scans scoured ruins, and strike teams scuttled through cities hunting whispers of rebellion. And still, whispers grew louder. The tunnels had changed. No longer only a refuge, they had become a hive. Runners ferried intelligence between cells, engineers bent alien tech into strange new tools, and scouts mapped patrol routes with meticulous care. Humanity had been forced underground, but underground they adapted. Elena Marlowe stood over a table littered with alien circuitry. Her hair was tied back, face smudged with grime. Around her, Jonas and 2 other engineers worked with surgical focus, soldering human wires into alien cores. Jonas grinned as a console sparked to life. "Hijack their comms? Not for long, minutes at best, but we can feed them ghosts. Confuse their scans, mask our movements." Elena's lips curved into a rare smile. "Good. Shadows are where we win." Caro leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Never thought I'd see the day we used their toys against them. Marcus would have liked this." Elena's chest tightened at her brother's name. She pushed the ache down. "Marcus would have demanded more. So we'll give more." The first strike with the hacked comms came 3 nights later. A Dominion supply depot had sprouted from the wreckage of an old stadium. Towers of steel pierced the sky, glowing faint green. Drones circled constantly, their red eyes like hunting hawks. Inside, crates of weapons and energy cells stacked higher than trucks, enough to arm an invasion fleet. The resistance crept through the skeletal remains of surrounding buildings. Elena moved at the front, her rifle strapped tight, her comm buzzing with Jonas's ghost feed. "Ghost signals live," Jonas whispered. "For the next 7 minutes, their scanners think you're pigeons." "Let's hope they hate pigeons," Carol muttered. The fighters slipped past patrol drones, unseen in their blind spots. Elena's heart hammered, but her steps never faltered. They reached the depot's outer wall, charges already planted on weak points. She gave the signal. Explosions ripped through the silence. Walls buckled inward, fire streaking across the depot. Resistance fighters poured in, rifles blazing. Chaos followed. Drones whirled, disoriented by ghost signals, firing at empty air. Human fighters surged through the breach, cutting down Dominion soldiers in swift bursts. Carol shot a guard mid-step, then shouted, "Load what you can!" Elena vaulted onto a crate, firing down at a soldier scrambling for cover. Energy from Jonas's hacked rifle tore through alien armor, leaving smoking ruin. She scanned the depot, eyes sharp. Every crate was a prize, every second a gamble. 3 minutes left on ghosting, Jonas yelled. "Pull back with what you've got," Elena ordered. Resistance fighters heaved crates onto carts, dragging them through the breach. Caro detonated another charge, collapsing a tower to block incoming reinforcements. By the time the ghost signal failed, the depot was a furnace of collapsing steel. The resistance vanished into alleys, smoke covering their retreat. Behind them, the Dominion's prize turned to ash. The strikes didn't stop. One night, resistance saboteurs derailed a Dominion crawler carrying fuel, the explosion lighting up the skyline for miles. Another day, Jonas's jammers scrambled a Dominion orbital strike, sending their own cannon fire into an empty field. Each blow was small compared to the scale of the Dominion's might, but together they were a storm. The invaders had expected to crush a world in days. Instead, they found themselves fighting phantoms. And for every shadow strike, the legend of defiance spread further. But shadows carried costs. Weeks into the campaign, Elena sat in a tunnel chamber lit by dim lamps. Her face was pale, her hands trembling with exhaustion. Around her lay the wounded, fighters burned, broken, bleeding. The air reeked of antiseptic and despair. A young soldier clutched her sleeve, his voice weak. "Captain, tell me it's worth it." Elena knelt, pressing his hand. "It's worth everything. Every fight tells them we're not broken. You did that. You showed them." His eyes closed with a faint smile. His chest stilled. Caro stood in the doorway, his jaw tight. "We can't keep bleeding like this." Elena rose, wiping blood from her hands. "We don't stop. Every sacrifice buys us tomorrow." Caro's voice cracked. "At what cost, Elena? How many tomorrows before we run out of people to fight them?" Her gaze hardened. "Then we make sure every tomorrow hurts them more than it hurts us." The Dominion noticed. Deep within their flagship, Supreme Strategist Varix Kottol studied reports with cold detachment. His 4 eyes scanned holos of ruined depots, fallen drones, vanished patrols. A subordinate trembled before him. "Primitive insurgents. They fight like vermin, strike and vanish. No discipline, no order." Varix's mandibles clicked softly. "And yet these vermin have burned my supplies, stolen my weapons, and defied every command to kneel. They are not vermin. They are infestation. What shall we do, strategist?" His gaze burned. "We tighten the grip. Starve them. Smoke them from their holes. And when their leader emerges..." He paused, a cruel edge to his tone. "I will crush her myself." That night, Elena sat alone in the tunnel's silence. A lantern flickered beside her, shadows stretching across the wall. She replayed every battle in her mind, the victories, the losses, the faces of those she couldn't save. The cost was high, but the alternative was worse. She remembered Marcus's ship breaking apart, remembered the alien voice demanding humanity kneel. She whispered into the silence, a vow no one else would hear. "We'll never kneel. Not while I breathe." She closed her eyes, listening to the faint hum of activity deeper in the tunnels, proof that humanity still fought, still endured. Above, the Dominion tightened its grip, but in the shadows below, a war of defiance burned brighter than ever. The tunnels no longer held enough air for the ambition growing inside them. Guerrilla raids had bled the Dominion, but the Resistance knew they needed more than shadows and sabotage. To truly shift the balance, they needed a weapon that proved humans could stand face to face with their conquerors. That chance came with a rumor. Elena Marlowe stood before the Resistance Council, maps and stolen intel glowing faintly under jury-rigged lamps. Her voice carried steady conviction. "The Dominion has a corvette docked at Pier 47. It's under repair, skeleton crew only. If we take it, we don't just gain a ship. We gain their weapons, their comms, their reach into orbit." The chamber stirred. Fear and awe mixed in equal measure. Carol leaned forward, brows drawn. "You're talking about stealing one of their warships. Captain, that's suicide." Elena met his doubt without flinching. "So was fighting them in the streets. So was tearing down their outpost. But we did it. Every impossible thing we've done is why we're still breathing." Jonas, hunched over a console, cleared his throat. "I've studied their docking clamps. Their security cycles are predictable. We get in during the maintenance window, we have a shot." Caro exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "One mistake and we'll be vaporized." Elena's gaze swept the room. "If we stay underground, we'll suffocate. If we rise, we might fall. But if we take this ship, we show them Earth doesn't crawl, it climbs." Silence followed, then slow nods. The decision was made. The raid unfolded under cover of storm. Rain lashed the ruins as the Resistance moved through the drowned streets, weapons wrapped in tarps, boots splashing through black water. The pier loomed ahead, alien towers jutting against the lightning sky. The corvette hovered above the dock, sleek and predatory, its hull scarred from battle. Jonas's fingers danced over his device, ghosting signals and looping Dominion cameras. "Windows open. Move." Elena led the squad across the slick pavement, every step a whisper. They cut through patrols with silent knives, dragged bodies into the shadows. Caro watched the corvette with awe and fear. "Up close, it looks even worse. Like a shark waiting to swallow us." "Then we get the shark," Elena muttered. They reached the docking ramp. 2 guards blocked the entrance, armor gleaming wet under the stormlight. Elena raised her rifle and fired. 1 shot clean, 1 soldier down. Caro dropped the second before he could cry out. The ramp groaned as they stepped onto alien steel. Inside, the ship's corridors pulsed with green light, walls humming faintly like a living thing. The Resistance spread quickly, silenced weapons cutting down crew before alarms could rise. Jonas tapped into a console, sweat beading on his temple. "Locking doors, looping feeds. Buy me time." Elena's squad swept forward. Every corner was a blade's edge, every shadow a possible death. But momentum was theirs. The Dominion had never considered humans bold enough to storm one of their warships. They reached the command deck. The alien helmsman turned, mandibles flaring in alarm. Elena's shot caught him square in the chest. He crumpled, twitching. "Clear!" Caro shouted. Elena stepped to the center console, heart hammering. The panels glowed with unreadable symbols, but Jonas was already at her side, fingers moving fast. "I can reroute the helm. Not elegant, but functional." Elena's lips curved faintly. "Elegant is overrated." The ship rumbled as engines roared to life. Resistance fighters gripped railings, wide-eyed as the corvette lifted from the dock, rain cascading off its hull. "Captain," Caro said, disbelief in his voice. "We're flying." "No," Elena corrected softly, staring through the forward glass at the storm-racked sky. "We're rising." The ascent wasn't quiet. Dominion patrols detected the theft within minutes. Fighters screamed through the clouds, streaks of plasma raining down. "Strap in!" Elena barked. The corvette jolted as a blast grazed the hull, sparks showering the deck. Jonas shouted from the console. "Shields at partial strength. I'm rerouting power, but don't expect miracles." Caro manned a captured turret, knuckles white. Come on! He fired, beams slicing through the storm, catching a fighter mid-dive. The alien craft erupted in flame. "Two more on our tail!" another fighter yelled. Elena grabbed the helm controls, forcing the ship into a sharp climb. The corvette shuddered but obeyed. Plasma fire ripped past the viewport, one bolt grazing so close the glass scorched. "Almost clear!" Jonas cried. "Give me altitude!" Elena yanked the helm, teeth gritted. The corvette broke through the storm into the open night. Above, Earth's curve gleamed faintly against the void. And beyond, the Dominion's blockade ships glittered like knives waiting in the dark. Caro swore under his breath. "We're a mouse running at a nest of snakes." Elena's jaw set. "Then we bite." The corvette roared into orbit, alarms blaring. Dominion ships shifted to intercept, their weapons glowing. Elena's fingers tightened on the helm, mind racing. She wasn't just flying a stolen ship, she was gambling Earth's defiance on one impossible move. "Jonas!" she shouted. "Weapons, anything we can fire?" He slammed his palm on the console. "Got it! Cannons online!" Caro grinned fiercely. "Time to return the favor." He unleashed the corvette's guns. Beams of searing light tore through the void, ripping into the nearest blockade fighter. The alien craft exploded, debris scattering across the stars. Resistance fighters cheered, their voices raw with triumph. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had struck in orbit. The Dominion retaliated swiftly. A cruiser pivoted, cannons glowing brighter than suns. Jonas's console screamed warnings. "We can't take a direct hit." Elena's eyes narrowed. She remembered Marcus, remembered the Valiant splitting apart. She refused to let another ship die the same way. "Target their weapon array!" she ordered. Caro fired. The corvette's cannons blazed, striking the cruiser's glowing core. The enemy ship staggered, its blast sputtering out in a spray of sparks. The resistance roared, victory surging through their veins. But celebration turned hollow when another Dominion ship loomed behind, cannons already primed. The corvette jolted violently as the blast struck. Consoles sparked, lights dimmed, alarms wailed. "Damage on rear thrusters!" Jonas cried. Elena fought the helm, forcing control back. The corvette limped but held. Caro, face grim, growled. "If we stay, we're ash." Elena's chest heaved, rage and clarity burning together. "Then we don't stay. Plot a jump, anywhere away from their net." Jonas hesitated. "Jumping blind could tear us apart." "So we're sitting here," she snapped. The ship's core pulsed as Jonas rerouted power. The stars stretched, blurred, and the corvette tore free of Dominion space. When silence fell, the fighters slumped in their seats, faces pale with shock and wonder. Caro turned slowly to Elena. "We just stole a warship." Elena's voice was quiet but steady. "No. We claimed it. And now the Dominion knows humanity doesn't hide, we fight." The corvette drifted in the void, scarred but alive, its stolen heart beating with the pulse of Earth's defiance. For the first time, the Resistance had a blade sharp enough to pierce the Empire's skin. The tide had turned. The stolen corvette drifted in orbit, its hull scarred, its crew battered but unbroken. From its viewport, Elena Marlowe stared down at Earth, scorched, fractured, but still alive. Beyond the planet, Dominion warships glimmered like a net of steel around a wounded prey. "We can't outgun all of them," Caro muttered, scanning the tactical feed. "That blockade stretches across half the sky." Elena's hands rested on the console, her voice calm, deliberate. "Then we don't outgun them. We outthink them." Jonas, face pale from exhaustion, looked up from the helm. "You're planning something reckless, aren't you?" She almost smiled. "Reckless keeps us alive." The calm crackled, and a voice colder than space filled the bridge. Captain Elena Marlowe. At last, the Phantom of Earth reveals herself. Varix Cottle's tone dripped with arrogance. His image flickered into the corvette's holoscreen, towering, armored, eyes glowing with disdain. You've cost me soldiers, ships, supplies. Impressive for a primitive. But the game ends now. Surrender your vessel, and I will grant your species the mercy of chains. Elena leaned toward the screen, fire in her eyes. Chains are for those who kneel. And we don't. Varix's mandibles curled in disdain. Then you will burn. The transmission cut, and Dominion cruisers surged forward. The corvette shook as enemy fire lanced across the void. Shields flared, systems screamed. Caro gripped his station. We won't last 5 minutes under this barrage! Elena's gaze sharpened. Then we hit harder in 3. She pointed to the flagship dominating the formation, Varix's vessel, a colossus bristling with weapons. Take us straight to him. Jonas gaped. That ship could crush us without blinking. That's why he won't expect us to ram the gates of his throne, Elena said. If we cut out the head, the body hesitates. Fear spreads. It always does. The crew hesitated, fear etched across every face. But beneath it, something stronger stirred. They'd followed Elena through fire before. Now they would again. Caro slammed his fist on the console. Let's make them choke on it. The corvette roared toward the flagship, weaving through plasma storms. Fighters swarmed, wings flashing red, but resistance gunners tore through them with stolen Dominion cannons. Sparks lit the bridge, alarms howled, but the ship kept charging. Shields at 30%! Jonas shouted. Hold course! Elena barked. The flagship loomed, a mountain of metal blotting out the stars. Its cannons glowed, preparing to erase the corvette in a single blast. Brace! Caro yelled. At the last instant, Jonas rerouted power to the corvette's cannons. Beams of searing light punched into the flagship's weapon array. Explosions rippled across its surface, fire tearing through its armored flank. The giant staggered, its main cannon sputtering into silence. Cheers erupted on the bridge. But Elena raised a hand. Not yet. We're not finished until he is. The corvette latched onto the flagship's docking bay with stolen codes Jonas had cracked. The hull groaned as clamps sealed. Elena rose from her chair, strapping her rifle across her chest. Caro, Jonas, you're with me. The rest hold the ship. If we don't come back. Caro smirked grimly. You'll come back. You're too stubborn not to. The docking bay stank of scorched metal and ozone. Resistance fighters poured into the cavernous chamber, weapons ready. Dominion soldiers swarmed to meet them, claws clicking, plasma rifles blazing. The fight was brutal and close. Elena moved like a blade through the storm, ducking, firing, never hesitating. Caro covered her flank, his rifle kicking in steady rhythm. Jonas fought with desperation, every shot personal. Step by step, they carved a path deeper into the flagship. Finally, they reached the command chamber, vast, domed, walls pulsing with alien energy. At its center stood Varix Kotol, towering and armored, for eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. He spread his arms, claws clicking. So, the insect dares to bite its predator. Elena leveled her rifle at him. Predators bleed too. Varix lunged with speed unnatural for his size. Elena rolled aside as his blade-like arm cleaved the floor. Caro fired, bolts sparking off the alien's armor. Varix swatted him into a wall with terrifying strength. Elena! Caro gasped, but she was already moving. She fired 3 precise shots into Varix's joints. He snarled, staggering but not falling. His mandibles spread in a cruel smile. You fight well, for prey. Elena met his gaze, eyes hard. Prey doesn't fight. We endure. We adapt. We win. She drew a blade from her belt, human steel, plain but unyielding. Varix charged, claws flashing. Their weapons clashed, sparks showering the chamber. His strength was monstrous, but Elena's speed and resolve turned every strike aside. Jonas, bleeding at the console, shouted, "Systems are overloading. We have minutes before this whole chamber blows." Elena pressed harder, slashing across Varix's armor, drawing alien ichor. He roared, striking back, but she twisted away, driving her blade deep into the joint beneath his mandible. Varix froze, mandibles twitching in disbelief. "Impossible!" Elena's voice cut like steel. "Nothing's impossible when you fight for home." She twisted the blade. The alien strategist collapsed, his massive form shaking the floor. Silence hung heavy. Caro dragged himself upright, coughing blood. "Tell me, that was the head bastard." Elena wiped her blade clean. "It was." Jonas staggered to her side, staring at the fallen alien. "Then maybe, just maybe, the galaxy knows we're not theirs to break." The Resistance retreated to the corvette as the flagship shuddered from internal explosions. Once they cleared the docking bay, fire consumed the alien vessel, its bulk breaking apart in orbit. Across the battlefield, Dominion ships faltered. Confusion spread without their strategist. On the corvette's bridge, Elena stood at the viewport, staring down at Earth. For the first time since the sky had burned, the blockade was fractured. The impossible had been done. Caro eased into his chair, wincing. "You realize we just declared war on an empire?" Elena's voice was steady, fierce. "No. They declared it on us. We just told them how it ends." The crew fell silent, then slowly, a murmur spread, first a few, then all. One phrase, whispered and repeated until it filled the bridge like a battle hymn. "We never kneel." Elena closed her eyes briefly, Marcus's face flickering in memory. When she opened them, her gaze was steady on the stars. "Send the message to every frequency," she ordered. "Let the galaxy hear it." The corvette's comms pulsed alive, broadcasting her voice across Earth, across the void. "Humanity is bloodied, but not broken. We will never kneel. To anyone.